Welcome to Video Ferox's Creature Feature Month. Tonight, it's the creepy crawly world of eight-legged freaks. Get ready to squirm as we watch the town of Prosperity get overrun by giant monsters. Enjoy the show.
Oh, poor Ziki.
What did you say? You eight-legged freaks!
Alrighty, welcome back from the trailer to Eight-Legged Freaks! A movie from 2002, done by first-time director, oh god, I'm gonna fuck up his name, Eli Elcam, I think the dude's name was.
That sounds close to right.
I think that sounds right. He wound up getting the job because he did a short film about a lady being menaced by spiders in her house. And directors, the guys that did Godzilla, Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, they wanted to do a monster movie. They said, we want to do a 1950s love letter monster movie. They saw his short film and said, you're the man for the job, let's turn that into a real thing. And that's where Eight-Legged Freaks came from. So, Brad, did you like Eight-Legged Freaks?
I greatly enjoyed it. I can't say that I loved it. Part of this is because I actually am an arachnophobe and don't like big spiders. But once I managed to get the marks of my fingernails out of the palms of my hands, I enjoyed this film.
I came into this movie fairly late. I totally missed it in 2002 when it came out. I wound up watching it probably 10 or 12 years later, so, you know, the mid 2020s. And I love the fuck out of it. I'm like, where was this movie my entire life? This thing is fucking brilliant. It is campy, which is a hard thing to pull off. You can either lean into it way too hard and be kind of, well, Godzilla from 1998 was a very good example of taking itself way too seriously. Or you can be something like Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, which takes the joke and just makes it way too overwrought.
Yeah, they ran the comedy into the ground on that one.
And this one strikes the balance of camp and tongue-in-cheekness and a little bit of sly wink-wink, nudge-nudge to the camera without being overwrought is a really good word.
I would totally agree with you. It strikes a really good balance between the comedy and the horror.
All right, so definitely 2 thumbs up for us. Mm-hmm. Shall we just get on to the spoilers and we'll get into this bad boy?
The big pile of spiders.
Big pile of spiders coming your way here in a second. So like we said earlier, this movie is essentially a love letter to giant insect monster movies like Them or Tarantula. Bert I. Gordon, I think, did Tarantula.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what this movie is. A big budget, big special effect version of those movies.
It's got a lot of elements that is in common with Kingdom of the Spiders. Now, admittedly, Kingdom of the Spiders did not have giant spiders, but it did have regular-sized spiders in a huge swarm overrunning a small town.
We open with this truck driver driving along, and a radioactive barrel falls off his truck and bounces down this incline and into a lake. And radioactive goo goes everywhere. Spiders eat the insects, they grow to giant size, and then they fuck up the town.
There really isn't much else to the plot other than certain little subplots within that main plot. It's really basic, But then again, we're looking at something that's obviously taking off the 50s films, which, again, are really basic and full of character tropes. This movie, surprisingly, while it hits on a few tropes, the characters are surprisingly non-stereotypical, which is pretty good. Some of them more than others.
You take the kind of dumpy sheriff's deputy, and he's this kind of goofy, slightly ineffectual, why do we have all these guns? Wait a minute, this is Lee Harvey Oswald's guns? What are we doing with this thing? And he's not really the model sheriff. And you would think, okay, this guy is marked for death. Or the black radio conspiracy theory, Art Bell sort of dude, who is another person you would say, okay, he's not going to make it to the end of the movie. Not only do these two stereotypes of impending death make it to the end of the movie, they actually have badass moments.
You find yourself liking the characters, even the ones that are a bit more trope heavy.
Even the Mayor Vaughn, who he is the, an archetype, much like the mayor from Jaws, where he's corrupt, he's secretly stashing radioactive waste in the town's abandoned mine because the mine's played out. And so he's trying to get everybody in town to sell to him so he can then go to the developers and say, hey, look, we have a place to hide our radioactive stuff and I can get fat and rich. Even him is not a complete piece of shit. He does have some sort of redeeming qualities, even though he is clearly marked as the bad guy.
And he's also alive at the end of the movie, which is a bit surprising. He does get grabbed by the spiders, but when the other characters run into the den where the spiders have their larder of people wrapped up, he's one of the people that they manage to unwrap and he gets away.
David Arquette, the hero of the piece, and he is the son of the owner of the mine who has died, and he's come back to town because his father found a gold strike in somewhere in the mine, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go find this Lost Dutchman mine and revitalize the town. You can make the argument that he is very stiff and very kind of ineffectual and not a good, rugged hero. But the thing is, if you go back and look at the 1950s good-looking, rugged scientists, they were stiff as hell, they weren't very well acted, and they were kind of this archetype into themselves. So him being stiff and ineffectual is very on brand for a monster movie like this.
And also he goes through his own character arc of development. He becomes effectual and worthy by the end of the story.
And he gets the girl.
And he gets the girl, played by Kari Wuhrer, who is the town's sheriff.
You would think that somebody like that would be kind of fall into the MacGuffin role, and she doesn't really have the arc of ineffectual, help me, I need to be saved from the spiders story arc. She's actually kind of proactive and as much a hero as David Arquette is.
The only time they have a damsel in distress moment is with her daughter, who's being menaced by a spider, and she's the one who comes in and saves her. The characters are, for the most part, either solid or, at the very least, generally not annoying. Even the ones that are tropes they don't get in your face about them being a trope. You can find a certain level of plausibility.
Good enough. Okay, so when you have children in movies that are too clever for their own good, and they go to the adults and say, look, there's really monsters or invading aliens or whatever the plot of the movie is, over on that side of the hill, and, we need to go stop them, and the adults are like, whatever, kid, get out of here. That sort of happens here. The kid who is too smart for his own good, the son of the sheriff, he finds this chitinous leg thing that's about 6 inches long, way too big for a spider, and he goes and gets a ride from David Arquette back into town, and he says, hey, look at this spider thing I found, this is kind of a serious concern, and he's all instantly, it's just you could look like a cactus, which, to be fair, kind of does look like a cactus.
He says to the guy, well, I could tell you, but you're not going to believe me because I'm the kid, and no one ever believes the kid. I actually like the fact that he pointed this out.
But then later on, when David Arquette finds some collaborating evidence on his own, and he finds a leg that's, 8 feet long as opposed to 6 feet long, and he's like, oh shit, the kid's got a point. We need to do something. And the town more or less instantly falls in line behind the kid and says, okay, we need to do something about this. Versus, okay, we're going to ignore you until the third act, then the spiders show up, and it's a game time.
They actually have a good plan, which is to run to the largest building that can be fortified, which is the mall, and get everybody in there and make their stand. And that alone is a fairly intelligent idea.
And a sly nod to, oh look, hey, abandoned mall. How's that, George Romero? Ha ha ha. Mm-hmm. So another nice nod of the tip of the hat.
Another thing that they did that was cool was they had some completely random side character have a cool little heroic moment. There's a bit where he and other people are fleeing from a restaurant, and they're in a parking lot where there's these trapdoor spiders that are coming up out of the ground and grabbing people, and he's caught between a trapdoor spider and his car, and he's like, uh-oh, if I go over there, the spider's going to get me. So he looks around and he grabs a ladder and puts the ladder over the trapdoor spider's tunnel and runs across it to get to his car and away to safety. A completely random character. He didn't have any setup moment before that point. We see him in the cafe. He's just a random guy. But I was like, that's neat, having a complete background character having this cool little incidental heroic moment.
There's tons of pay attention to the background because there's stuff going on. There's that one scene as everybody's gotten to the mall and the spiders are coming down Main Street and they're starting to overtake the people trying to get into the mall. And there's this one dude who throws a couple of fists at the spider, and then the spider just grabs him, and it's behind a car, so you can't see the carnage because this is a PG-13 movie. But you hear the sound effects of the spider just absolutely just hammering the dude in kind of this goofy, okay, that was kind of a funny bit. And it was just a blink and you miss it moment.
Or the other bit that was just had me going was there's this old guy, and he's in the mall, and he's in a camping sporting goods type section of the particular store that he's hidden in. He hid in a closet, and the spiders went past him, and he came out, and he's got a pitchfork, and he's wandering around, and there's a tent, a dome tent that's right behind him that he walks past, and the dome tent starts moving, following him. And
it's a very Scooby-Doo moment.
Yeah, and it turns around, and you can see the door, and you can see the spider inside the tent that's been moving it around, and then it gets the guy. But it's just a great little moment that is just well executed.
And the whole movie is just kind of full of little nods and little touches and little things that kind of, background events and colorful things like that, and just kind of fun goofiness.
Like, for the sounds that the spiders make throughout the movie is just brilliant. They make all kinds of interesting little effects with the sound, which I looked in the credits, and it was done by animal sound expert Frank Welker, who is a voice actor that anybody who knows old Scooby-Doo or old Transformers or old Dungeons and Dragons will recognize his name in the credits. He's been doing voice acting for like forever, and he loves animal stuff. But there's bits where spiders are chasing people and they get tired out and they're panting, or they do little screams or moans when they get killed.
There's this moose in the restaurant, and it attacks the moose thinking that it's prey and starts eating it, rips out a chunk of stuffed animal, and goes, ugh, puh, and then scurries off to go get fresh meat. Stuff like that.
Or ones where, like, the jumping spiders are chasing the teenagers on the dirt bikes, and the spiders are actually going, whee, on occasion.
Or the one when the tanker truck overturns and the spiders catch fire. One of them comes out on fire and then, dies and just collapses with a...
I mean, these are great moments.
And the movie coming from 2002, it has, how shall we say, not the best special effects in the world. The CG in here is kind of that on the precipice of the transition from practical effects to computer-generated stuff, and it doesn't look very good. But the thing is, I think that works in the service of the movie because the spiders are a lot more cartoony. The spiders are a lot more... okay, you said you're an arachnophobe. Mm-hmm. So the kind of fuzzy, kind of cute, kind of not threatening spiders, an effect of the bad CG, diffuses it for you.
Once I got over that, once the non-reality, the non-realness of these spiders impacted on me, they did a great job with these in making them not look 100% believable, so that once I got over the initial reaction, I was able to watch it without cowering in a corner gibbering. You know, that helped.
And the thing they also managed to do, in addition to the making it acceptable to people who don't necessarily like spiders, they give all the spiders personality. There's this one scene where the BMX racer dude gets grabbed by a spider and then his friends say, "Oh shit," and they take off. And this one spider just barely misses him. And he looks up and you get this close-up of his eyes and you kind of see him scowling at the biker as he races off. He's like, "God damn it, I gotta chase his ass down." And he goes off chasing his ass down. That little personality touch.
Yeah, and that's hard to do for an arthropod because... all of their skeleton and chitin is on the outside, and they have incredibly non-expressive faces because there's no surface muscles. It's all underneath. So it's just the expression of the eyes and the way the fangs and the palps are set that actually give the spider a sense of expression and feel. Also the big female orb spinning spider at the end, the monster spider who chases them out of the mines. Right as she's getting caught on fire, there's a bit where she's like, "Ah," right before she dies. Like, just that noise of frustration, and you actually kind of go, "Yeah, that sucks for you, doesn't it?"
Also, talking about the sound design and the squeaky toy spider monster things, we have to talk about the soundtrack, because that's another indicator that don't take this movie seriously. Because they've got scenes of menace where the spiders are creeping up on people, and it's scary, and it's dark, and it's spooky, and you start listening to the soundtrack, and you're a couple of bars into it, and you're like, that's a really super sinister version of Itsy Bitsy Spider, and it's fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah, and one bit where they're doing this, they're focusing on the tarantula, which is about as opposite from Itsy Bitsy as you can get. I mean, this thing's the size of a freaking tank.
There was one spot where the movie is a little kludgy and ham-fisted, and that would be the very opening scene where the kid who knows too much for his own good. He has a friend who runs a spider farm on the outside of town, and this is the catalyst for the spiders growing to large size and taking off. And the way the scene plays out, it's well, hey, come in, we just got a whole bunch of spiders. Come take a look at my shop. This one's a trapdoor spider. They hide under the ground and jump out and grab people. This one's a leaping spider. They jump after their prey. This one's the biggest one in my collection. This one's a tarantula, and it grows to, 3 inches across. It's very, 1950s on the nose. Radiation, as you know, is measured in Roentgens. So I can't fault the movie because that's a trope that it's leaning into, but it does kind of feel...
It's an info dump.
It's an info dump. But it's an info dump that's appropriate for the, you get the end of Psycho where the psychologist explains what schizophrenia is to the audience who has no idea what schizophrenia is. So you kind of need your spiders are doing jumping and trapdoors and stuff, because I wouldn't know.
Everything they do later on in the movie, they do in the info dump. One thing that I liked about that is the science is actually pretty good, except for the spiders getting to unrealistic size. Everything else is pretty believable. Okay, the sound effects were a little hanky, but everything else made sense.
You kind of have to have spiders growling and making noise because it wouldn't work if they were realistic and didn't really make noise other than occasional hisses and stuff like that. You kind of need to have spiders growling, or it's kind of like how in Star Wars, if you took the sound away from X-Wings, it wouldn't be any good because, hey, that's realistic, but it's also boring. So you got to have your monsters growl.
A good example is the ants from Them. Those ants made all kinds of noises. I've never witnessed ants actually make noise, ever.
Yeah, but that sound is fucking terrifying. And if you took that away from the movie, then Them would be a much lesser movie. And I think the growling spiders, when they're jumping, would also be a lesser movie if you took that away from here.
The sound actually adds to the cartoony aspect of this movie. It's a kind of over-the-top thing, but it also helps to give them personality, and it's just funny.
Well, dude runs over to the car, gets in, the spider grabs the door and just yanks it off and pulls him out, and fuck! And there's one, the leaping spider leaps at a dude, but he slams first into the plate glass window and does the goofy slide down the window. So it's chaotic, it's funny, and it's kind of scary at the same time.
When you're getting grabbed by 3 or 4 giant spiders at the same time and they're all going to eat you, I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, that's a horrible way to go. They do these things that are just little visceral details that make sense, but at the same time you're just like, wow, they had to think of that.
Can I nitpick for a moment? So the end of the movie is that all throughout the movie they've been making a big deal about the mines being abandoned and that, hey, be careful when you're down in the mines because there's methane down in the mines and you will die because, explosive gas overcomes you, you fall over, die. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, okay, so they get this plan of, hey, let's hide in the mines, go through the mines, and then when the spiders are following us, wait a minute, why don't we just, set off a spark and blow up all the spiders and blow up the mine, and that'll take care of our problem. And so they start sabotaging the lights and stuff a matchbook in there so that, when all you have to do is go up to the top of the mine, turn on the generator, it'll send some power down here, set up the matches, and kablooey. So, and they make a big deal about no cigarettes, no sparks, no nothing. Don't shoot because if you shoot, then all of a sudden, boom. And then what do? They drive their goddamn BMX bike all around in the mine. BMX bike is a combustion engine. Combustion. What's combustion?
Boom.
Exactly. Little itty bitty poop, 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 poop. Okay, so there's my nitpick for movie. That's why this movie fucking sucks.
They did an interesting little thing with the stun zapper. They get up to where the generator is, and the generator doesn't start. And the kid points out, no gas. So they're running around trying to find gas cans with gasoline in them. All they need to do is run the generator for a minute. And they can't find any gasoline anywhere. The teenage girl has the stun zapper, and she's like, will this work? And the sheriff plugs it in and puts it up to the contact points for the generator and starts it up, and everything works great. But I was like, that was actually a good idea, and they totally McCoy or Chekhov's gun it, because she uses it earlier on in the movie.
There was one bit where Scarlett Johansson's being webbed to a wall and she's screaming for help, and the help hasn't arrived yet, and so she's reaching desperately for the taser that's on the bedside next to her. And the way you're thinking, it's like, okay, this is going to come into play now. So it's reinforcing a Chekhov gunness without actually firing prematurely. Mm-hmm. So yeah, clever bit.
The hero comes in, he tries to save her, but he's beating on the spider with a chair, but the spider knocks the chair away from him and gets him too and starts webbing him to the wall. And it comes to the sheriff to come in with her rifle and basically blow the spider away. that was also cool because they set you up for a false expectation that the hero was going to rescue the girl. But he didn't. He got himself into the same sticky situation she did.
Again, the hero of the piece is stiff and largely ineffectual. They're playing into that trope.
They do a good job with the false expectations thing, and I like that aspect of the storytelling.
This movie is very postmodern and subverting of expectations for a giant 50s monster movie.
If they'd done this in the 50s, all of the characters would have been different in one way or the other.
Well, we certainly wouldn't have had a black dude as a prominent... Well, okay, he was still a supporting role, but he was a prominent supporting role.
And we wouldn't have had a female sheriff for one thing, and the other thing is the female wouldn't have been nearly as effective as she was, in a heroic sense. Those two things alone would make this elevated above a 1950s film, but it feels a lot like a 1950s film, and that's the wonderful thing about it is it sets itself up like one. It just doesn't finish like one.
I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about a giant spider monster movie. So, Brad, do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, I think we can wrap it up.
No, fuck yo. No, this movie is not a masterpiece, but the thing is, it's not trying to be. It just wants to do big, dumb fun. So it sets out to do big, dumb fun, and is wildly successful at big, dumb fun.
Oh,
so,
definitely.
Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely. It nails it 100%. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll catch you next week.
Now on sale at the box office of this theater, A Book of Happiness. It's a real bargain. $10 book for only $8. $5 book for only $4. The most welcome gift that will give joy throughout the year. Now on sale at our box office, The Book of Happiness.
Thanks for joining us for Eight-Legged Freaks. We hope you didn't get too squicked out. Don't forget to tune in next week for our next creature feature pick, The Blob. So, stay evil, my friends.
Oh, hey, you know what? Let's just go back inside. Okay, let's go back. Locked. That's okay. Plan B? All right, tell you what. We're gonna run away. Yeah? Yeah. Okay.